Guess what day it is today? It's Thursday. And guess what's happening on Thursday? Yep, it's another day with Maurice. I am so excited because I'm actually excited to find out what we're going to talk about. I have a few ideas, but where a conversation goes, you never know with Maurice. But I can promise you, as always, it's going to be very enlightening, uplifting, and revealing of so many different things. So without further ado, welcome, Maurice.
Hey there. How you doing, Elisa?
I'm doing good. I woke up super, super tired today. I don't know, this last few weeks has kind of been I don't know, this I've just been this tired pattern. And there's a lot going on, as we all know, and a lot going on with me and Rebel Crone and things. I'm trying to get this class that I'm doing it's a free webinar class called Finding True Purpose. So I actually videotaped it all day yesterday, Maurice, and then I
hmm
went back and I listened to it, and it's like, nope, I didn't hit the mark. So, I kind of sometimes I listen to myself after I record something, and I feel like I sort of dance around a circle with it. I didn't quite like go straight in. So I'm going to redo it tomorrow. And now I got it. It's like, all right, this is how we cut right to the chase with it. And cut out all the extra words and just say my message. So, anyways, that's going to be tomorrow, and I'll send more information out about it. But today, Maurice, what I'd like to start talking about is something that's been on my mind the last few days, and it has to do with politics.
Oh
Okay,
boy.
but we're not going there in a way that people may think we're going to go there. I'm going to try to take like the highest road that I am coming up with. This is what I like to do. I like to always, whatever challenge in my life is, how high can I go with it? And I keep aiming for a higher and higher perspective so I can see my way through something that may be, tumultuous or getting my dander up. So this is, I want to share with you like what the path I'm finding through this, and then I'd love your perspective on it.
hmm
And also, Maurice had received last week this beautiful, beautiful comment and response from a lovely woman. And it really touches in with what I want to talk about too. So I'm not going to put any names there because we don't have permission to say her name,
hmm
but I'm going to start by reading it because
I
it's going
will
to
say
best
this on that. Her initials are RC, so
RC.
she knows who we're talking about. At least she does.
RC, that's like Rebel Crone. How
That
perfect.
is. How about that?
So
What a
RC,
cranky dink, huh?
dinky dinky. Okay, so this is just kind of cutting in to the conversation she's having with Maurice.
Sure.
And what she says, and in my life to a massive degree before shock, trauma cycle, betrayal type stuff, over and over until I stopped playing, reacting, and didn't care. Or say cared more about the battle in a way too, and hoping for karma. They get same lessons or experiences back, that sort of thing. Instead of allowing things to happen and flow through or be like water on a duck's back. I truly feel different now, like changed, LOL. It's hard to explain. Like everything does not have to have an answer, a reason, a scapegoat, something to blame, a label, even an emotion attached. All right. That's powerful right there. And that is my perspective right now on the political thing. So I want to run this by you, Maurice. Is in my life, I try to practice neutrality. That doesn't mean numbness by any means. It means full open, perceiving, feeling, trying to understand what's going on, but neutrality as that comes in. So I can have like keep my heart clean, keep my heart calm,
hmm
have my mind working for me and not spinning off on stuff. So that brings us to politics. And right now, the game that's being played, and we all can admit that it's just this massive game of high intensity, people against people. No water off the duck's back, like RC was saying on this one. People are super, super engaged. In fact, after the debate, I got on and I was looking at some posts and different things to try to have different perspectives just to get a pulse on where people are.
Mhm.
And there's so much self-righteousness about it on both sides. And, one side, oh, big fat liar, big fat liar, big fat liar. Well, they don't know that both sides have stuff they're lying about, know whether it's intentional or not. It's just all built on a house of cards of lies. And it's all part of the same game, the political parties. And, so neutrality is something that is just, is is not the game that's being played or foisted upon us. And this is the point I'm getting to is in my perspective, is for a takeover of the earth by the negative energies. Let's just call them negative energies that want to take over and control what's happening in this earth experience, experiment, whatever we want to say. There's a 3D realm. What's trying to take that over, it's important for the United States of America to fall because we are the superpower and we've been holding a certain balance. Now we can poke at what that balance is in our agendas and the subversiveness of stuff. But when we look at other countries in comparison, we are definitely the highest on the hog as far as people living and our what do you say, quality of life and all of that.
We've
But
been the biggest bully on the block for the last 50 years
exactly.
or
Okay, so
more.
yes, exactly. So there's a big agenda. There's also an agenda to take us down. And that agenda, like the art of war, is perfect, is divide and conquer, and it's sowing dissension from within. And even Russia in their playbooks talks about sowing dissension from within, and how do you do that? You pit people against people. I mean, it's such a playbook. The playbook is out there. And
Yes.
people aren't seeing how manipulated we are as far as pitting us against each other. It's so unnatural. Like this whole thing is like, if you vote for her, you're a Satanist. If you vote for him, you're delusional. Blah. And if you do this and that, and it's such hatred, like that is just not our natural state. So that's what getting me thinking, like, why? What is going on? What's the, one level of the game of destroying our country because it's going to be civil war for a takeover. And then like the higher perspective of, well, this is just another part of the game. And it brings me to RC's comment about, this place of neutrality that I try to practice. So I just want from your wisdom perspective, because you've been through more political cycles than I have been through,
I've
you
seen a
know,
few, yeah.
yeah, how do you see this, Maurice? And does it make sense what I'm trying to work
No,
out?
I hear what you're saying. You really can't blame the people. They were educated by the system to think the way they think, and society functions as if that is the only reality. And that's the most important thing. And all of the jingoistic pro country, believe me, Britain did it, Germany did it, France did it, Spain did it. All governments do that. It just so happens that the United States and leading the Western world visible, there's this whole invisible thing behind the scenes that we don't see. That you get up the chain in a certain career field and you start finding out, oh, this is how it really works. But that isn't what you see at the mainstream level. So talking at the mainstream level, it's a constant conflict. That's the way the system functions. It's a competitive society. It's not. I call it organic. There may be a better way to say it, but the organic way is cooperation. That's as epitomized by what we read about how the Native American, both Latin, Southern, and North American cultures operated. Probably the Australians as well. What we call the Aborigines, and they call themselves the Origines, I'm told. The point is, it's to me, it's the society we find ourselves living within is an imposed society. It's inorganic. it's constructed, it's made to run this way, and we're caught into it. But internally, we know there's something wrong with it. That's what you're expressing. That's what a lot of people expressed. It doesn't add up, but they don't have a viable in their awareness alternative to reach. The only choice for them is really it's been since I've honestly ever since the late 60s when I first started meeting people, what people call hippies. That I there's several kinds of hippies, by the way. The ones I'm talking about are the genuine ones, not the cardboard cutouts that were quickly put up there as the leadership and took over and all that kind of thing. But the genuine ones, which would be modern day errants, actually, that's
Like,
literally true. Those were the people that I identified with and hung around with and talked with. Um, the only viable alternative they had was to leave society. They literally, and they did, but not many of them. But the ones that did broke free. Most everybody else complied for this, that, and the other reason. Oh well, you know, I just got married, or I've got a job, I've got to support myself, I have to pay my rent. All of these reasons that are concocted around us to tie us into the system that we find ourselves living within. The only viable option is either to take what RC said. So that's close enough. She knows.
oh, so that's fine. There's a lot of roses out there.
What she was pointing at, and believe me, that lady thinks a lot. She sends me long messages, and they're as thoughtful.
Thoughtful,
Always.
yeah.
That's a good one. What she's talking about, that's something that what's going on right now amongst people like yourself, like the errant crowd, and people of similar nature who don't even know errants exist. Errants is just a certain, grouping of people that have come together and taken a label. There's others as well, and we know some of them. And throughout the world, we only interact with the English-speaking world. There's a whole world out there that doesn't speak English, Spanish, French, German, Russian, all of them. And I have no clue, but I have a faith, if you will, that what we're talking about is also being talked about similarly within those cultures, and maybe even more so. Maybe they have a more grounded approach to the world than the Western world. And we say America because we live in America, but it's basically it's a Western world. It started out with technically it started out with the explorations, if you will, of the late 1400s. Columbus in 1492, and into the Caribbean, which is technically the Americas, and that's 500 years of Western imposition of a system, and it's here we are today as the ultimate growth point of it. And when what we see it's part of the system. It's an imposed system. It's for certain that the Native Americans and South Americans and wherever else they went, Australians for sure, and New Zealanders and islanders in across Micronesia, they were overwhelmed by superior force. Point of a gun. That's how it happened. Really, might makes right. That's also part of the American tradition too. It's maybe not identified as such so much within the schooling system, but it's there. Look at your teams.
Yeah.
You look at your sports teams. The ones that actually the mightiest one wins, one way or another, be it the cleverest or the most deceptive or the most whatever. It's competition everywhere. That is what our system is, and I maintain it's an imposed system. It's not an organic system.
I absolutely agree with you, Maurice. And even if you're out there, you're listening to us and you're really into the whole Tartarian narrative and Star Forts and all, the time of the giants and all of that whole incredible story that's being
Hmm.
hidden, which I do agree it's there. We just don't know what it is, but it was conquered, right? So it still fits into something was opposed upon it. It's gone. And in fact, it was completely wiped out of the narrative. But
Hmm.
once again, it was a thing of that whatever happened to those societies and that built all these incredible constructions from even the ancient megalithic stuff to the more modern, what we had the remnants of at the turn of the century that were there in this country, well, actually all over the world, of the World's Fairs and the incredible red brick buildings and all of that. That's gone. How could somebody completely wipe out that history? But it was conquered. Whatever that was, it was conquered. Unless there was a mass ascension of all those people that did that and they totally transcended this reality in one big poof, which could have happened. We don't know.
We
You
don't
know,
know. That's the thing. Well, you got the whole story of the Anasazi down there in your general area, mostly in Arizona, but that's pretty close to where you're at.
Oof.
And that's supposedly only 1,000 years ago. So,
Yeah,
they disappeared. Nobody can tell you why. And if they could, they wouldn't.
right.
Not from an official source anyway.
I know there's like these quandaries. There's these quandaries in my own mind of fitting things together because that. Oh man, I'm sorry. We're gonna veer off here. There's so many
Okay,
good things. I'm like
there
making
are.
notes and there's like all this stuff to go on, but only because I'm gonna be selfish and something that's on my mind.
Yeah,
Or
stick to the point.
there's certain like quandaries about what to do about all this and if we should
Yeah,
even try
I
to do
think
anything.
that's the more important thing that you and I can actually talk about. There's a gazillion different subject matters we could go down, and actually, what we're really looking for is a reasonable path out of the maze or through the maze or whatever. Um, and is it even possible to do such a thing?
But fundamentally, let's just talk about fundamentally, Maurice. Is it something to even like, I don't want to say strive because I don't like that word, but to focus on? Because this is like in my own mind, I wonder, I know in my being, I'm here to be Elisa and to
Yes.
do Elisa fully. The older I get, the more I embrace that. And I've just like, yeah, I'm to be me. And whatever that blessing is to the world, fine, but I need to come clear within myself to a place of like harmony and higher vibration. Keep looking at that higher vibration. Yet, then at the same time, that is there anything that we are, I mean, I feel like being compelled to help make a difference in the world, but why? Why make a difference in the world when this is, I mean, I have no problem with it being a construct and part of the simulacrum and all of that because that's part of the dream within the dream. It's all a projection of consciousness, but I feel it's an important aspect of projection of consciousness and it's here for a reason. Should I do anything about trying to change the trajectory of it, i.e., in voting in this election, which we'll get to in a minute, but I do have some opinions on the choice, and it's not the choice what most people would think is.
Hmm.
Or do we just sit back and solely focus on ourselves
I
and the
would say
people
that's
around?
the answer. I'll boil down in a lot less words than you just used. That is the answer. You got to it. The answer is let them do their thing, you do your thing, and
Yeah.
trust that what you're doing is correct. And it is. It literally. I've come to the point. I'll speak for myself. Like we said in the previous two conversations we've had on this, on this medium. Um, the truth of you comes through you. It doesn't come from out there. They don't tell you. All they do is confuse you and entertain you or put you into fear, which is another form of entertainment. It's kind of macabre, but it is a form of entertainment. But the truth of you comes through you as you, not from them. And you have to, for you in particular, because I know roughly, where you are, and you're again, we're talking to your listeners. We're not talking to the general population, the mass media attempts to sway this way, that way, and the other way. So I can actually get away with saying some things that are more pertinent, if you will, not just the mass. Well, there's too many people and too wide of spectrum to reach everybody. So who do I aim it at? I'm going to aim it at you and people that resonate with you and your message, and that's who watches you. All that said, I can't quite quote the passage, but there is one in the Bible, something about let the dead bury the dead, or something like that. You know, you probably know it better than I do, but let them be, let them do their thing, and know full well that that's not your way anymore.
Yeah.
And you can still survive in this world. You can still walk among them, but you can't be them. You technically you can be them, but that's not that causes an inner conflict. But you know how to play their game. They don't know how to play your game.
Ah, that's a good point.
My daughter said something to me when she was like 5 years old, and I was complaining about my existence at a paper mill. Now, bear in mind, I had a college degree. I had already been in and out of the military. And so I was like 7 or 8 years older than most of the students around me. And I had a little life experience. And then I ended up working at a freaking paper mill that I could have joined at 18 years old in normal society, but my life put me in a path where I was doing that in an area. Hell, I was in Western North Carolina. I'm from Michigan, had been in Florida, had been in Alaska, North Dakota, Texas, all over the place doing things. And I met people up there that hadn't been out of the county in their whole lives and were proud of it. And I had to be one of them. Well, I did. I figured out how to do it well enough to survive it and thrive in it, actually. But my daughter and I was kind of pissing and moaning with my daughter, and I wasn't trying to overload her. She was the only one I could talk to, and she was only 5 years old and growing. And she looked at me and she said, Dad, she said, you can be one of them, but they can't be one of you. And I'm telling you, I'm 81. Hell, I'll be 82 in a couple of weeks. Um, that's still true. And that's true of you as well, Elisa. You know how to be one of them, but that does not satisfy you, but that allows you to go to the grocery store and do your business and get gone and do your surface duties of being walking among them. But interiorly, you're not in that space anymore. You know where they were because you have life experience. You know what that is. You've been through it yourself. And in that process, you said, no, this isn't me. Yeah, another person that we both know, I'll not mention, DH, said to me one time, you find out who you are by what you know, what you find out you're not, or something very akin to that. Not this, not this, not this, not this. And pretty soon, and you come to a point you say, well, if I'm not all of those things, what am I? And a lot of people are saying, what do I do? Well, what I'm maintaining is trust your inner knowing. Actually trust it. And I'm telling you, and you know from your life experience, you've even expressed this morning a little bit of how that works. You didn't know where you were going to go, but here we are. How many minutes? We're half an hour in already, and we're still talking and sharing.
And sharing.
Simple. We don't have to change the world. Honestly, another one-liner that everybody's heard one way or another. Change yourself, change your view, and you change your world. That's not just a saying. That is literally true. And the world will mold around you. You'll still be able to go to the grocery store and you'll still be able to go to work, although you'll find going to work less thrilling. But as you find that doing the humdrum daily business of life, you'll find other things that'll occupy your time as well. And pretty soon something will come along. How the hell does that happen? Well, we don't know. So we call it the universe provides. That's one of the phrases we use. But looking back, I have enough life experience to say, son of a gun, it actually did. I didn't see it coming. I didn't create it. Something happened. Here we go. It happened. And an opportunity presented itself that I didn't create or didn't see coming.
It's the art of allowing, right? And it's just,
Yes.
oh my God, there's so many. Okay, so a couple of things I want to go from there. Okay, I got to make a note so I don't go off on a tangent and forget that. But one of the key things is for our listeners to what Maurice was saying about you change your world. You know, change the, or you say change you, change the world. But just reminder, you change your world. I don't
Bingo.
change your world. I change my world. I don't change your world. And that's like the free will. That's, I mean, there's so many things that spin off of it. That is, you know, the power of our incarnation. And my world is a reflection of, you know, my projection of consciousness. And
Correct.
that'll be according to my projection and the quality of my heart and the quality of my mind and the culmination of my actions. Where yours is going to be for you with that, you know, and that's how we can be an influence of just coming of our energy system coming in the room and influencing the room or influencing people. But that's not my problem. That ain't my business. Going back to politics, it ain't my business. You know, what you believe and what you don't, all this arguing around there. You know, when you come to another point of understanding, it's like this power of I'm creating my world for me. Selfish, 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 me. I'm going to create it for me because this is the world I want to live in. And after all, I can only create the world that I live in. I can't create the world you live in.
Correct. And it's not your responsibility to do so anyway. It's their life. Let them live it. If they want help, they'll make it known to you and you will help because that is your inner nature. You want to help. Part of you is wanting to be helpful, wanting to have nice things around you and people having nice experiences. And you even know a few ways to make that happen that have worked for you. You make suggestions. They take, if they actually do enjoy, take your advice, they'll do it uniquely anyway. They're not going to do it identical to you. They're going to do it in their own way. And then that's what one of the words we use is that's growth. That is growth. And that's inner growth. We physically grow. Hell, we physically deteriorate. You know that. But internally, it's not a situation like that. We start out, hell, the plant world. You have you have some experience at least with that, growing things in the yard. They start out as a damn little pea bud or something, whatever you call it, and they go through the life cycle, but they grow all the way up. You know, they mature, they fruit, and then of course they deteriorate and go into the ground. Of course, before they do that, they at some point they seed the ground for the next year, which is a version of us. We mimic that, you know, in our physicality. But the difference with us is we sit here and contemplate all of that stuff. Apparently, the plant world doesn't do much of that. Same thing I'm given to tell, even the animal world, although they have a consciousness, that's for sure. But I don't know that they don't sit there and mull over things like we do. And they've got fur on them. They don't need clothes. They get where they need to go on with their feet and hands and stuff. We have to get transportation and all that. That's society. In a way, we're here, but we don't seem to fit even physically, do we?
No, and that's the whole the errant blessing and the errant challenge, right? Because I bet you all the errants out there listening, and all the people that are, we say errants, it would be like the true hippies, the people that question reality. That's kind of like the errant movement.
Yeah, it's a version of what of an something that's always been here, but it's always been a distinct minority. And in the thing about today's world, I will interrupt and then I'll let you go again because you were going down a tangent I already liked. Point being, in today's world, what with electronics the way they are with the computer, we're actually able to interact with each other. Where before, and I'm telling you, we're only talking 25, 30 years ago, people only interacted with the ones they met on the street. which and if they traveled, they had short interactions with people, but they didn't have the ability to connect up like we do now. So most people, they felt if they knew one person in a whole damn town, they felt really lucky. They also felt very isolated, but at least they met somebody like themselves. Otherwise, they thought they were crazy because that everybody
I,
else in the world told them they were.
it was different. And that's why speaking with people that are older, my generation, early 60s baby, I was always an entrepreneur, had my own business.
Hmm.
And then when I was hit around 40 in 2000, I went to work for a bioenergetic medicine company. It was part of a spiritual community and the
Hmm.
Institute of Applied Ontology that I studied for 7 years. And it was a very interesting new turn in my life away from the things I was doing. But they sat me down, they hired me. I was going to do some sales things. I eventually did a ton more stuff with them. But the first day I sat down in front of a computer and I was like, I had never been on a computer. I ran all my businesses with a spreadsheet, a ledger, a
Sure.
physical. My dad taught me you got your pencil, you got your ledger. I filled in and I did all of my, payroll, taxes, all this stuff. And it's ledgers, 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 paper, paper, paper. And
Yep.
you're sitting in front of a computer and it's like, oh, you guys didn't ask me if I knew how to use one of these things because I've never been on one. So you think about that, running a business and living life and not having a computer or technology. There were cell phones, but basically it was flip and dial.
Yeah, but
You
that
know,
only showed up in the late 90s,
yeah.
or maybe not even until the early
Oh my God,
2000s.
I don't even remember, but I do remember the before. I remember the rotary phones with
Yeah,
the
for sure. There
spirally
was.
cords, and then we
Yeah.
got push button. It was like woo, and then it's like oh my God, and then the big cell phone that's like this big. Hello,
Yeah. The only
it's
people that had that was supposedly billionaires and Hollywood people in movies and stuff. I never saw one in real life. I saw them
right.
on screen.
And then people would carry on the boom. Remember, boom boxes came and they were like this
Oh, yeah.
giant boom
Yeah,
box, like
yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
Anyways, it's so there was just huge changes in my generation, and
Yes.
then
There
in your
was a
generation,
massive change in your generation, more
it
so than
happened in our.
even, well, I actually went through your generation, but I went through it in relative to you. I would have been your parents'
Yeah,
people. And amongst your parents' people, most of them didn't want to change. They were kind of sitting back and saying, these crazy kids, goddamn, they didn't do it like we did it and stuff like that. But that was true even back when in the 60s. Most of the people did not go along with the hippie movement. That was young people. That was high
my
school and
parents did
college
it. My
age kids in the
Yeah,
late 60s is when that really started showing itself and into the 70s, which is
yeah.
when you guys but you were around. You were born in the middle to early, well, put it the middle 60s, okay, roughly speaking. By 75, you were 10 years old. You were taking stuff in, some of which was illegal by then. I didn't even know such a thing existed until I was like out of the Air Force.
I
And
was
by that time,
14. I was 14, which is a huge difference between 10 and 14. So I
okay,
was
yes, I
14. I
understand.
was just in high school in high school. So yeah, I was ingesting some stuff by then.
Well,
In my
apparently a
many.
lot of kids were. I listen. If somebody smoked a frickin' cigarette in high school, they were a rebel, and they were frowned upon by the administration. And I probably only knew two of them. And I had a hell. My high school had I don't know 1,500 kids in it for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So three or four of them were the only ones, and that was the bad boys. Most of us just toddle along like we were supposed to toddle along and do the things we're supposed to do because that's what we were being taught to do and how
And
to.
this is
Go ahead.
exactly, Maurice, the point that I was coming to. We just looped right back around to it. Is this growing up with being an errant, being unable to like fit in and being questioning things. And I think there's more. Well, I don't know if there's more of it. There's a thought maybe there's more of it as time's gone on, and maybe not. But I know for me, and I've talked a little before about my story, in like out of body experiences,
Yes.
very young.
Mhm.
I really there's this thing that, oh my God, something's just not right here. What's not working out? And I always felt like this older soul, or I always felt like I was looking at my life from a different perspective, like out of my body, watching things.
Mhm.
Damn it, there's like that little voice, like I just knew, and I understood what was happening with groups. Like I would test, like maybe I can belong here, and then I'd have to pretend to belong there, something I'm not. And then I'd pretend for a while and I got so tired of pretending. And it's like, oh, that's not me. That's not that fun. And I could just see through the game that they're playing in the little,
Mhm.
rigmarole and all that. And I didn't want it. And I'm going to try this, going to try that. So by the time I was like in high school, I tell you what, I was just sort of like doing my own thing. I was really like, I just not going to fit in anywhere. And it felt kind of like a curse back then because part of me just wanted to like, why can't I be like other people and just sort of go through life and I could
Mhm.
just, get married or do a job or have kids and just be happy with that. And it's like, I could not, you
Have you ever
know.
heard the phrase "ignorance is bliss"?
Yes,
Of
it's
course you
exactly.
have, and that's what you're talking about. If I could only just be ignorant, I'd just be blissful like they
I'd be
apparently
happy.
are. But I had a foreman that for some reason he liked to talk to me more than anybody else. And we would find ourselves walking somewhere and he looked at me and he said that to me and I looked back at him. I said, and this is probably, Jesus, that was in the early 80s. So that's a long time ago, 40 years ago. I looked back at him and I said, yeah, as long as you don't mind bumping into walls all the time. And that's effectively what goes on. Yes, they appear to be blissful because they're not concerned with the things you're concerned with. But the thing is that they never get anywhere. They keep coming to dead ends, dead ends, dead ends, dead ends, and then they're dead. And that's the
Yeah.
life cycle of the system.
Right. And
Never,
then they're bouncing around in the sea of life without a
yes,
raft, without a motor,
and no
without a way.
direction except continuation. and
Yeah.
and survival becomes the crucial point. As
Hmm.
they age, the only thing they want to do is survive. They literally do. And a lot of them, I don't know if they still do or not, but they used to want to have their name carried on. That was the
Legacy.
big deal back,
Legacy. Hmm.
the further back in time you go with people. Well, that's pretty humdrum, isn't it?
Hey, I was not born with the legacy chip, and I wasn't born. I just wasn't born with that. I never had kids. I never wanted kids.
Mhm.
My desires as a little girl is I want to grow up and be a monk. I wasn't born with that, or like the reminiscing kind of thing. Or I
Right.
mean, just there's certain chips I just didn't come in with. You
That was the
know.
society I was born into. Therefore, that's the way it was, and it moved from that to where we are now, and it's been a hell of a transition. And my back to my initial point with you in particular, the kids that were born in the 60s are the ones that went through the most radical change at the youngest age. You guys were into the middle of that stuff when by the time you hit school in the first place. You didn't know what was going on, but it was already going on.
Hmm.
For older people like myself, we were in our 20s by that time. So we had, if you will, we had some solidity about ourselves, some reference points along the way. You guys didn't, and you were confronted with your teachers were telling you the old ways, what they were taught, because most teachers, especially in K through 12, are repeaters anyway. I'll tell you, half the college professors are as well, but they just repeat what they were taught. Well, what they were they taught? They were taught the system. They were trying to inculcate the kids with the system, but the external world was already imposing upon them. Hence, at 14 years old, like what you said you experienced, a lot of kids did in school. That never happened prior to that time period. And you start opening that world into modern society, you got chaos, don't you?
Yeah, I mean and I just look now and some of the more current generations
Mm,
and
God
just
knows what they're doing.
how this agenda is just really moved forward. I mean, there's just really very sadistic agendas, and we can go
Yeah,
into the
well then
gender.
you have to go to who's running it then, and that goes into the deeper levels. And
Yeah, we don't need to. That's not the conversation today. I'm sure one day we'll have that, but
yeah,
and
well
part of
maybe.
that's irrelevant in a way. Maurice. I mean, it's good to know. There's like certain curtains I know that are there, and I pull it back, and sometimes I'll speculate, but it's speculation. Just granted, it's speculation. People say it's the Illuminati. It's above the Illuminati. It's these trans, dimensional
There's
beings.
a
It's
good
the
yeah,
lizard
there's
people. The
there's a lot of that.
I know all of that, and I look into it with curiosity. It's like, okay, and I don't discount anything, yet I don't give credence to things because I personally I don't know. But it's good to know. For me, I like to know that okay, this is some of the speculation out there, and that
Mhm.
all you look at it, they point to different things, but as a whole, what it's pointing to is yes. Now, is it the archons? Is it the whatever is going on there? We don't know for sure, and if we were meant to know, we would know, but that's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's okay. So I know that that's going on. I know that there's a whole old world order that's been wiped out of history. I know that's going on. That's okay. I put it there. I know like, there's all these different categories we can look into, archaeological categories,
Sure
scientific
can.
categories, celestial and, what's going on planetarily and, in the cosmos, lots of theories, flat earth, round earth, domed earth, oval, square earth. I don't know. So all these things to me could be distractions.
They, there's a
Right.
middle way. There is and this is where I'm for. That's why I'm here talking with you. I'm telling you, there is a middle way through all of that. And that middle way is to seek your center. Your center is there also. Your center is always, every one of you listening to this, internally, it's never led you wrong. And if you effed up, if you will, along the way, something went wrong, you say, what the hell? I shouldn't have done this, that, and yeah. Well, what's telling you? It's not because it didn't work. It's because you did the wrong thing and you know it. Well, how do you
Yes.
know it? How do you know it? That's your inner self telling you that you did the wrong thing instead of doing the right thing. If you'd done the right thing and you knew to do it in the moment, but you didn't because of this, that, and the other reason, or I got mad, or I lost control of what I was, I shouldn't have said that, but I said it in a fit of anger. Anybody listening to that ever had that comment come out of their mouths? I'll bet you did. I
Oh,
know.
so true, Maurice. And this is a huge point. This is such an important point because the lid blew off for me. I don't know how many moons ago, but a long time ago, when I attempted to start to blame God for things in my life, when it's just like, no, little missy, you cannot blame God because you had the little angel has always sat on your shoulder and
It's
told you,
always
made a
there.
suggestion. They're not gonna, it's free will. So our higher self, whatever you want to call the angels around, whatever your knowing always told me, pointed me in a direction that would be the best. And I would choose a different one. And every time I chose a different one, it always ended up, and it was like, okay, well, I couldn't get, early on, I just had to start laughing at it. This is like, I knew better. How could I get mad about that? I'm the one that chose differently,
You know
and
what
that,
happened? You chose your egoic self over your spiritual self, but you didn't know it in those terms, but that's what the hell you did.
yeah,
And that's the thing. We've got this ego. This ego is the tool, it's not the boss. But people treat it as if it's the only thing that's running things. They, I'm me,
yeah.
and my thoughts tell me what to do, and I screw up this or I do this right, and oh boy, I'm great, or oh boy, I'm a schlemiel or something. The point is, that's because you're playing around as if the ego is the boss of you, and that's the most important thing. But it's not, because internally there's another aspect of you that is not your ego, because it talks to your ego. You can hear it, maybe not through your ears, but you certainly can hear the
Yeah.
conversation in your head some kind of way. It's that voice, if you will, sounds just like you in your thought processes. That says, no, you should have done this, and you say, yes, I should have. Well, who's where that conversation? That's how I'm kind of describing the difference between the egoic self and the spiritual self, your higher self, if you will. That good angel, the good wolf, not the bad wolf, for instance, or the
Exactly.
good
Who are
angel,
you
not
going to
the
feed?
bad angel.
Yeah. Who are you
That's
going to
just a way
feed?
of trying to describe in words the duality that we find ourselves within. And the life process is figuring that shit out for yourself. And once you do, the more you acknowledge, you say, yeah, 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 and it works. It isn't like you got to sit here, like I said last week, I think, and twiddle your thumbs because you're not involved in anything. You actually are involved, but you're involved at a higher level than maybe the guy next to you, or the woman next to you, or anybody next to you, and you may be the only one in town, but you're shining. Another phrase from the New Age: you're shining your light. And it only takes a freaking light like this to light up a room. Wait a minute, where the hell is the camera? There it is.
No, I see it there. It does. It does. It takes just a little spark to light up a whole field of darkness. I mean, that's like
True.
the cool thing about it.
You do
You
it
know,
because that's who you are. If you acknowledge that's who you are as your reality, that's changing your world, your
yes,
world. Once you do that, but you have to do it. And there's no pathway for everybody. You have to come to it in your own time. And that's again, that's something your ego does not control.
right.
You do as you're given to do. You say yes, I say no, you're in. I'm confused, I'm not confused. That is what the system presents to us as the only choices, always.
And I want to phrase this in like in a little different way is, the egoic self and the higher self.
Yes.
And one is about separation and, individualism,
Yes.
separation,
Hmm.
isolation. The other one's about wholeness and oneness. And with the one, how they work energies is very different. So the egoic self is all about forcing will upon your world, is forcing, pushing energy, going again. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to stand up on my own. And the other one is, and this is where we go from 3D up into 5D kind of stuff, is allowing. And that's what consciousness is waking up to right now, is that art of allowing from our higher self. I'm going to allow it in and I'm going to direct it. It's like, you don't have to use force to push your way and get things to happen in the world. You have to allow and be the mechanism
Oh,
that the allowance of your higher self can move through the world and make the changes within you, around you, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And that's, I feel like, we're talking about here is the art of allowing, the art of being in harmony with our higher self. So we know that we're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. It's just because I'm in alignment. That's been the big difference for me, I would say. Maurice, is coming into my elder years and why I can claim my cronehood for myself. I can claim it because of this very lesson right here, is
mm,
that now I listen to the angel on my shoulder.
good.
And as I follow that intuition, it's a gut intuition, it's a heart intuition, and it's also a mental intuition and a mind intuition. And I follow that now. And if I feel okay, this is the thing to do, thank God I just ding do it. I don't question it or whatever. It's like, okay, cool.
You know what
Just
to do. And the more you do that, the more that just becomes you. And that's
yes, and the
growth.
more you can hear, the clearer it becomes.
What do
The
they call that?
stronger it becomes.
Expanding consciousness, don't they? Isn't that one of the words they use? There was a
Yeah.
guy, you probably know him. I know him. I read his books. A guy named Alan Watts back in
Mm,
the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He died in the early 70s, but his last book, which I read, the title is In My Own Way. Now that can
mm.
be taken two ways. There was a guy named Frank Sinatra before him in the 40s and 50s that was real popular in the country. And one of his famous song was "In My Own Way." Well, it was the way Sinatra expressed it was, "I did it my way,"
Yeah.
egoic self. Alan Watts, you could read those words and take the Sinatra interpretation, or if you read his book, you'd say, what you and I are talking about. My fucking ego is in my own way. It's preventing me from expanding.
From being
Get out
me,
of my
from being,
way. Get my
yeah.
get, don't destroy it. It's a tool. Use it. But you understand that it's not the boss. Now,
Oh
how the
my
hell
God.
you do that? I can't tell you, but it happens.
Well, it happens because we start to we the light starts to go on and we have to follow that light. We can't have a light of consciousness of an inspiration happen and then we keep going that way. It's never going to grow. It's going to go out, right? It's the wolf. Who are you going to feed? Which one's the strongest? The one
Mhm.
you feed. It's so
There's all
beautifully.
kinds of ways that
Oh my God.
cultures have passed that information down. So it's always present. It's just not accented, and only certain people pick up on it. And it's as soon as you see it, you know it's true. Now, how the hell do you know it's true? Because
Because
all
it's
your
true.
teachers didn't teach you that, but you see it and you say, "Damn, that's right."
It's true.
Well,
Maurice,
what part
I
of
gotta
you is saying, "Damn, that's right"? I'm telling you.
The part that knows. Maurice, I
Yeah.
got to tell you, 2 nights ago, I couldn't sleep. And so I took my phone, my little headphones on, and sometimes I'll just listen to something, usually inspirational or whatever, and I'll just go to sleep by it. Well, I was listening to some Alan Watts stuff. Of
Oh,
all,
Lordy.
it's so funny. You should
He's the
mention.
one with the S on the end of his name, not the modern guy, Alan Watt.
Yeah, Alan Watts. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, that's so funny. So there's some good things on YouTube by him. Very,
Oh, hell
yeah,
yeah, there are.
it's
That's
great stuff.
the information is there. It's just, do you choose to pick it? And who's
Yes,
doing the choosing anyway, I would ask you.
right. You've got choices, and it's like, what are you gonna feed? Which side are you gonna feed? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. All right. So this is now. I want to kind of go in. It's not a little. It's expanding on something that we were talking about, but even maybe a little more context with stuff. And some of this up in my mind because I'm doing this true purpose thing, and this is one of the segments. And it's something also that I feel like is really coming strongly into consciousness now. He's talking about the two selves. We've got the egoic self and we've got the higher self.
Yeah,
This whole world, but I should pull back world, let's just say at least this country, because this is the country I know,
right.
is built upon the egoic self. It's
Yes,
built on a toxic identity. We could say toxic masculinity, patriarchy, but I don't want to confuse those things with the masculine, because the masculine is a beautiful thing and it's a needed thing because it's
yeah.
the
Well, yes, yes, I agree. Go ahead.
but okay, so it's like there's a toxic agenda, and it came through religion. It came through wiping out the older balanced wisdoms and the old balanced mysteries and what we call them paganism and all of that, where it was a harmony of mother and father gods, the
Right,
Holy Trinity, mother, father, and children,
whatever.
and of humanity. So what we're in today, we don't realize it, but every single thing is built on that premise. You think of the whole when European countries came over, Spain and
Yep.
England, and they started conquering the world. They came over in their ships, whether Columbus was probably not the first, there was more before that. They brought guns, they brought steel, they brought disease,
Yep.
and they wiped out what was there,
Oh, yep.
or they conquered it. But it was
Exactly.
a it it's that was all that toxic agenda that
Correct.
came through and wiped things out, and everything we accept as the way of being. This is like, I'm gonna blow the lid off of absolutely everything that we accept as the way of being is built off that platform. It's
Correct.
not built, it's the rugged individual. Well, yes, we're individuals connected to the whole. That's a different way of being. We would conduct business completely differently
Hmm.
from that perspective. Everything would be, our educational system would be completely different. Our medical system would be completely different. Our monetary system would be completely different. It's
Right.
all built on that. And as we raise our consciousness, as we're understanding that it's all comes from that politics, it's all built on that paradigm that we accept as truth. It's not the work week. Who the hell came up with Monday through Friday, 8 to 5? That's a construct.
That
We just
I
accept
heard
it.
somebody say just yesterday, that's the Pope's schedule in a one-liner. Yeah, you mentioned
Yeah.
about the work week because the Pope I don't know if he technically did in the 1400s or 1500s or whenever the hell it became the way of life in the Western world, but it basically probably came out of the same system, which is the Vatican, which, 500, 600 years ago, they were running the world, literally.
Yeah. Oh, they are the ones let's get specific about. That's what created the toxic agenda of wiping out all the balanced wisdom that was available. It was balanced wisdom because it honored. I mean, this is John Lamb Lash's work.
Oh boy, I know him too. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I love his book In His Image, but I only can get halfway through it because to me it gets very speculative after that. But his initial history stuff, there's something very profound that he calls the God of the Old Testament, the God of, that the whole, I don't know, Christianity, but the Catholic movement came on
Hmm.
that, wiped out Europe and wiped out all the wisdom, just
Yahweh.
slaughter, mayhem across the globe. That's based on, okay, this is how insidious it is. It's based on a male god, right? But it's an off-planet god because you can't acknowledge any power on the planet because that would be the feminine. So it's got to be all masculine. It's not a God that's on this world. It's a God that has dominion over this world and its people. By God, don't piss him off because he raped, pillages, and plunders with immunity. And
Yep.
in fact, he's preaching that you have to suffer to gain your what's the word I'm looking for? Is like through suffering redemption.
Yep.
What
Or
sickness is
salvation, either way. But yeah.
salvation? Yeah. What absolutely sick thing. I am going to send my only begotten son down there, which is weird, and you're going to murder him. And through you murdering him, I'm going to love you. I mean, it's all demented. It's demented. And
Bingo.
it's also a talking about this God. So John Landlash talks about this is an alien God. And that's so hysterical because it's not of this planet. It's somebody out there imposing down here, as opposed to we are intricately connected with this planet, is part of our projection, is part of us. It carries the feminine, inclusive birthing energies of cycles of all, stuff. There's all that going on. And yet this is everything we have built on in our society, is from a religious point of view of a male God, of this egoic self, of forcing its way into creation, forcing and trying to mold and bend creation into a way of being.
And you're
But
not worthy, and you never can achieve totality. That's original sin. You come in guilty. That's
it's
also a Christian, if you will, maxim. And that
that's the
goes back,
sickest.
yeah. I don't know
That's the
about
sickest of it
Judaism,
all.
but I do know about Christianity, and I'll tell you for sure. You're guilty before you even get here, or as you get here. And you can't really be you can be absolved, but you never really earn it. We just grant it to you.
Exactly. Absolution is granted. It's not because you can ever come. So, oh my God, you think about why is there so much mental illness? Why is there so
Huh.
much dis-ease in it? Because it's all built on a false paradigm. And if my listeners out there, if you think that you're immune to the original sin complex or construct, all these constructs are so deeply embedded in the mass
Are.
consciousness. It's so deeply there. Everything's built off of it. But you have to like fearlessly and with courage just track your thinking down, just trace it back and trace it back. Now why would I feel like that? Why would it mean that? What would it mean there? You'll come to that. Oh my God, my biggest fear is that I'm flawed and I'm not worthy. And trust me, I have gone through all kinds of things in my life to self-help things, new age things, this that techniques. They all boil down to the fear that you're unworthy. Original sin,
Elisa,
original
let
sin.
me tell you, I could be charged with a sexist statement here, and I know it ahead of time. But as I grew, and I've watched women through my life, I've been around them and through generations for decades, okay? The one thing that is ingrained and beaten into you young ladies as you grow up from a very, very early age is you're not worthy. It's that whole, you know it, they manifest it through in beauty, right? I've got to be, she's more beautiful than me, or I got to do this to be more, because it's all surface shit. The reality is the inner, not the outer. But the whole society, and again, it hurts me to see it, but I see it all the time. Women are, they place so much value on how they look, and it's more important to look good than it is to be good to them. And it never pays off. It never fucking pays off. It might in a moment, but in the long run, it's not worth it. It ain't worth it. But by the time you figure that out, you're in your, God knows, it depends. Most women never
That's
figure it out.
the insidious game with females, and it's absolutely true, Maurice. And this is how insidious and evil it is that we're worshiping, or we're told to worship an ideal beauty of about 14, 16 years old.
Yep,
That's a little girl. That is not a woman. That's a little girl. Is there
correct.
not something sick and about grown men and grown people worshiping a little girl who's barely like in puberty, out of puberty? That's
Mhm.
not a woman. A
No,
woman is a grown ass
I
woman.
know what a woman is. I've met a few, and I believe me, you guys are wonderful. When I run into a real, like you're talking about, what a whole woman is, a crone, if you will. I love them. They're great.
They're
They're
great.
strong. They're independent. They're not a threat. They're a help. They're
And we got
wisdom.
lines that we got
And
lines on
walking
our
for crying
face.
out loud.
we got saggy skin, we have lines on our
So
face,
what?
we
So
hair.
what?
That's part of the beauty. Why
Exactly
this
true.
ridiculous beauty we're set up to, and then they're selling products to my age women on a 14-year-old face that's never met a wrinkle in her freaking life.
Hmm.
But it sets women up about feeling bad about themselves. But Maurice, there is something beautiful about being beautiful. It means presenting yourself in the way of beauty, walking in the way of beauty. And what one of the things men honestly love about women is beauty they can bring into their life. If I'm cooking a meal, I'm going to cook it with love and I'm going to put it
Yeah,
on a plate with love. I'm
yeah.
going to dress it to be attractive because I love me. If I go out in public, now I was raised by an Italian mom, and Northern Italians, they present themselves publicly. My mother would never get up and go to the grocery store in sweatpants or t-shirts. She always, and I was raised that way, but there's something I really love about,
Listen, women
you know,
didn't wear pants in the 50s. They did not.
in
They
the
all wore
60s,
dresses.
I remember my little girlfriend next door got these little jeans that zippered up the front like men's
Wow.
pants. I remember being appalled, and they were little pedal pushers and they had flowers on them. But I looked and they like zipped up the front with a button.
I
They
like I say,
were,
I watched this shit happen. It was great watching it.
oh my God.
The way, man, the late six for a guy in the late 60s, it was holy shit. What is this world I live in? The way
Oh
women
my,
were carrying on with the way they looked and how they carried themselves. It was like, this is so foreign, but this is so wonderful. And
yeah,
you
freedom.
girls were all such beautiful things, such creatures to see. You
Yeah, to
were.
actually be able to see them, you saw boobies,
Yeah,
people
no shit, you
they're the
did.
rock. It's like, oh my God. But there's also that we won't go, we don't have to go in today, but that
Yeah,
was like everything else, every single movement in this world, it was infiltrated, it's taken over. The woman's lib thing, my generation was
oh
the
lordy,
tail end
I
of
could
it.
talk forever on
it
that, but
did
yeah,
it it did women no favors. Let me tell you
no,
that the when I was graduating from high school and
it
there
did
was
men
girls,
no favors either. By the way,
it did no favors. It was
no,
that there was an agenda there, and that's a bigger
absolutely,
conversation. And if you don't think it's true, well, just entertain the idea. Someday we'll talk about it, Maurice.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
Well,
getting off topic. But
here we go.
I want to go like this whole thing with women because
Mm,
the Rebel Crone is about saying no to that agenda. It's about saying I have come into my beauty. The older I get, I come into my beauty because I come into knowing who I am, and that the I am is the beauty thing. And you can have beautiful things around you. You can dress in whatever way to, adorn this, but it's not the thing in and of itself. It's an
correct,
adornment to the center.
correct,
Um, yeah.
absolutely. You you said something and it caught my attention as you were going. It's it when you start saying yes to yourself, then the world changes for you. But the self you need to be saying yes to is the one that you and I are talking about and your audience is aware of. It's that inner self. That is your truth. But you have to really and truly acknowledge that and say yes to that, not to the rest of the world. I said yes to my thing. That's all show.
Hmm.
It's an internal journey. It always is. And
Exactly.
when somebody does it, they fucking know it. They don't go back and doubt themselves the next day. They know it. It's not an intellectual knowing, an egoic mind knowing. It's an interior. There's a, it's knowing with a capital K, if you will. When you write, I even use that. I haven't done it lately, but I used to. When I would refer to that, I'd capitalize K in the middle of a sentence because it's not the same as the common word no understanding of what knowing is. By the way, here's a little one I learned just yesterday. There was a guy named the Greek that was talking to Jason. He talked about a gazillion things because he can't keep his mind on something for very long. But man, did that guy know some stuff. But he said, look up the word nice in the dictionary, the etymological definition of nice. Well, I'd never done it, and I haven't really done it, but Jason did it online, and he read or in the broadcast, and you should have seen Jason's face. Without being able to exactly quote it, effectively, the word definition of nice is dull, stupid, um, and another word of similar nature. Now, I guess I ought to actually look it up so I know what I'm talking about, but I haven't done it. So, but that, and Jason looked it up and it acknowledged it. So later on that afternoon, I was in the grocery store and the common thing is have a nice day, between the clerk and that's the last thing they say. And the customer says it back. That's rote in society. And I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to use nice. Well, it turned out she didn't either. She said, have a good day. And I said, you too, have a great day. And
Oh
I
my
swear to
gosh.
God, I'm not going to use that word again.
Okay. So, what is the real meaning of nice? Like pleasant. Though nice is used to mean pleasant, it historically meant wanton or dissolute.
Wow.
So once etymology is fascinating because people call it spell casting, and
Yes,
that what we're in a
absolutely. And there's a lot of that going on too.
yes,
And it's
because the
intentional.
word it
When
is
it's practiced
intentional.
in society, they don't know. We don't know what the esoteric people that construct this language and do all of these things in their think tanks in the world, but they know those things and they do shit like that all of the time because they're following an agenda, and it's not one that they concoct every generation. This is a long-term deal, just like you
Huge.
mentioned. It started with it
Oh,
probably
when did it
started
start?
before
When did
the
it
Jews.
start? Maybe like before even any historical record. I mean, when did this really start and when did
We
it?
don't know.
We don't
There's
know
no
that.
way we can actually know for sure, at least as far as I've
Yeah.
been able to tell.
But the parameters around this, Maurice, is free will. And they have to work with free will. But if we cast
Yes,
our own spells upon ourselves,
yes.
create our own, like, what's the other biblical thing? I'm like so bad at quoting things too, but like, about judging people, like, judging others is really about judging yourself, lest you be judged. I mean, you set your own standard. That's because it's free will. People can't impose on you unless you do it. So when you're sitting there and judging other people, you're not imposing anything on them. What you're doing is you're setting your own limitations for yourself.
Well,
So
you're
when I
you're,
use,
you're establishing boundaries, and
yeah,
that's a necessary thing for a human being. If you don't have any boundaries, the whole world imposes upon you, and you have no filter, no filtering mechanism. That's another one. Men do it too, by the way. It's not women are all do have all of these deficiencies, and men are perfectly walking around. Believe me,
oh my God, they got their whole
it's
set of other
boy do
things.
we ever. But we didn't go down that road today, but we certainly could. That's women are they're by nature. You guys want to share. Among other things, you want to make do. You want to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear if you can. You know, in all kinds of ways. The houses, the men depend upon that. We go out and quote fight the battles so you guys can be protected to do what you do, which is your strength. Make a home, make a life. That I don't want to go terribly far into that, but that's one of the major differences. The thing about women, though, they have to learn about boundaries. Uh, And it takes them a while because they're open to the world. That's another thing. You guys are way more open to the world that comes at you than men are. Men are more by nature. We're more hard shelled, if you will.
Exactly. And and it's also a spectrum. So readers, just
Yes, I
listeners know
understand.
it's a spectrum. I happen to have, come into a very feminine body, but I have very strong masculine tendencies. So I've always started my own business. I've been able to move
Mhm.
through the world, be successful in certain ways, and be, I just a strong woman only because I got like very strong masculine, but I have strong feminine things. And I've been later in life, I've really been more focused on developing those feminine things because it's like my higher self is coming through that, and I'm learning like the real power. My real power hasn't come from my ability to be forceful and my masculine self. My real power is coming through my feminine self, but
Bingo.
the masculine is the container for it. Like we can say within us, the microcosm, and also within a relationship where a male will,
Mhm.
his protective nature should form an energetic and physical boundaries around his family so that negativity isn't going to come in and attack. Now we have to do this for ourselves because we don't have that setup right now. But
That's the
you know,
one thing. Yeah, women, that's something. It's not natural with you, but you have to learn it to survive in this world, or you'll get run over. And that's and it's just so saddening to me to have seen mostly growing women in their 20s and 30s. They haven't really. That's what I tell them. You need boundaries, and they know the word, but they haven't been instructed on how to do that. The only one that could actually tell them, a man can't. I can say the words, but it's another woman that has to tell them. That's
yeah,
what that's what a crone is for. It's a smart man will listen to a crone. A
yep,
wise man will listen with a crone,
yeah.
but a woman is a crone speaks to a woman more than they do to a man because they speak the language of women, and it's a
They
different
absolutely
language.
do. They bring different language. They have different things to share with men. They have inspiration and insight, whether it's, like those seers and, the women, a fortune teller or whatever you want, all the old, you know, um, roles that certain women would play. But we do have an ability to kind of pull back the energetic curtains and we see things.
You
We
do.
see stuff in a different way, and I'm built a certain way that's, I've always been able to, at certain times, see very specific things about the future, and I'll know the message. Okay, this is going to happen. I can't tell you exactly what or why, but next spring, it's going to be like this. Next fall, it's going to be like that. And, it always comes true. It always comes true. And that's a feminine kind of thing, but um, I think one of the points here, Maurice, is that, as far as like protection goes and for speaking to other women, there's protection on the real level that needs protection is your energetic level, is your energetic body, because that
No
comes to rest
question.
in
No
your heart.
question.
And
You
there's
do that, and the
protection.
rest of the world will mold around you. Because you will be strong and self-centered, as opposed to
Exactly.
scattered and weak.
Because you know what? It's a mixed up world we live in. Going back to when we first started, it's a mixed up world. There's a lot of competing energies. There's all the a world of polarities, of dichotomies, of yin and yang and all this balance, but there's also dark and light, and there are dark energies that will pull you down, that will suck your life energy right out of you, that will want you to choose that route as opposed to that route, because that route is going to lead to your destruction. There's natural entropy and natural syntropy, but there's also the negative,
Mm-hmm.
you know, about
True.
it. Like the
True.
words escape me right now. But so you need to, like, ladies out there, if you don't know any kind of protection prayers or protection practices, send me a message and I can help you with that, because there's very specific things you can do to do a shield, to shield yourself. And it's not to block out the world, but it's to say, I allow this, but I don't allow that. This is allowed to come in. That's not allowed to come into my sphere, my inner sanctum. And it's so important. Most of my life I felt, and I was under attack. If you're carrying any kind of light in the world, especially as a woman, you'll be under attack vibrationally from negative energies.
Absolutely true.
It'll come through your dreams. It'll come through people you meet. You think, oh, and how often are we the moth drawn to the burning flame of whatever desires? They're just going to gobble us up and spit us out, as opposed to the true light. And I'm just kind of rambling about it, but
There you go.
it's
Hey, there was a
really
line in one of the Indiana Jones movies. It was when um I even know it was the Knights Templar that was guarding that those three chalice or four chalices. I don't know. A lot of people have seen that movie, and he looked at Indiana Jones and he said, "Choose wisely." And of course, he chose the correct one and he survived. But
of
that's
course because he's Indiana Jones.
yes, of course. But that in the end, but who does the choosing? Who does the choosing? It isn't society telling you what the choice is. You make the individual choice, and it is your job. It is your responsibility. And once you do that, and until you do that, you're in confusion. One way or another, you're in confusion. Competing energies are leading you this way, that way, the other way. You're debating within your mind. Should I do this? Should I do that? Can I can do this, I can do that. That's confusion. when you make the choice to choose you, it's not like, now what do I have to do? No, you have help. I maintain, I tell you, and you can tell too, because you have enough life experience, Elisa, that you know this is true what I'm saying. It it shows up. It isn't a book, or it may appear in a book, but it isn't the book because it's a book. It's a message. The society, the universe has a way of making things flow, that things appear. Here we go again. They happen, and you notice them.
Yes, yes, and it's the song that's coming up. It's somebody randomly says something to you. Oh, it's just these little synchronicities. You saying Alan Watts, and it's like, okay, I think Alan Watts. I'm going to pay attention to Alan Watts for a little while. I
He's
picked that
cool.
up. There was no code. There's not a coinky dinky. You
No.
said that because something is coming through my consciousness of there's something there for me. So I'm going to take some time and I'll do some listening and reading there
Yeah,
because
well,
there's
they
something
got
for me.
videos of him on. It's easy. They got them on
Yeah.
YouTube. All you got
Oh
to
my
do
God.
is type his name in.
So so easy, but it's once again we have the choice, is what you're saying, Maurice. Is we absolutely have this choice, and we
You
have to
do.
choose. But if you're not sure, this is the time to ask. Like your angels, your higher self will never impose on you because you have free will. So you got to ask for the help. You got to say, all right, I'm not sure. These are the three things to choose from. Which one's the right one for me? Ask, and then be open, let go of any, just be open. And one will have a certain pull, and that's as you develop that feeling by and develop your extra senses by following that. You follow that and it gets stronger and stronger. Pretty soon you just go, boop, it's that one. I don't know why, I don't care. It's just that one, you
Exactly.
know.
And that's growth. That's raising your awareness level
Yes.
because you
If
trust more
people
in
are
you.
drawn to you, or I mean, it's like, oh, that looks interesting, but should I pursue that? Let me do a gut check. Let me do a heart check. Is that the right thing for me to pursue? Should I be around those people? Should I go and do this? Should I go and it's all there. It depends what you want. I can speak selfishly for me, is that I want the highest and best route for Elisa. I want to fulfill why I'm incarnate. To do that, I want to make higher and higher the clear choice. I want to do that road. I
You
want
want
to
to
do
be
that.
you.
That
You want to be the best you that you know how to be.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
literally do. And that's an important thing for you. And I will tell you, when you do that, life flows a lot easier for you. It isn't in the material world. It doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow because you decided to do this. It's not for gain. It's for
Mhm.
being. It
Yes.
literally, and I don't know how to further explain. That's, the words are correct, but the definition and what that all means, you either see it or you don't. But you're allowing the true you to show and flow through
Yeah.
you, as the unique Elisa, for instance. And when you do that, and you reflect upon that after the fact, for
Mhm.
instance, you say, damn, that really went, more often than not, that really went well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like the gifts of the universe, the gifts of a good, loving universe, the gifts of reality, of the connectedness of the whole. That's allowed to come in through you. I mean, we're called human beings. I'll go back to word crafting. We're not called human doers, human doings. We're human
Bingo. That's a
beings.
nice one. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's fundamentally, and if we just listen to like the right words, but human beings that we're meant to be. And this little class I'm doing on true purpose, it's not found through what you're doing. It's not about what am I going to do out there. It's what am I going to be? And when we get into being, then our purpose and application of our beingness becomes, sometimes a little, does it really relevant then? But yes, I think there's a higher and finer,
Well,
trajectory for it.
there's greater
But
wisdom than we contain within our human form. Okay.
yeah,
So we don't know all the answers to all of those questions that you just proposed in a moment. But yeah, those are from our point of view, we can sit and think about them and say, well, it could be this, it might be that. Here's a reason for this, that, and the other thing. But then,
the imponderables of life, right?
bingo, And bingo. And it's a joy to do them, but we have to know that that's what we're doing. We're playing with thoughts.
You're playing with thoughts, and that brings us back around. Like I was telling, the conversation starts to wrap up between us because it brings us back around to RC's quote that she
Yep.
sent you. You know, and it's just about, we got all these like thoughts, all these, you know, things. There's, I can pull it back up, but she's basically talking about all this stuff. And does any of that really matter? I mean, what really matters with all of it? You know, and what really matters is our beingness. That's
Yep.
it. You know, and that's why when I start, I said I practice neutrality with the world, because neutrality is the world outside my sphere, outside my sphere of me and my responsibility, which is me. Anything out that, I practice neutrality so that my intuition can guide me and lead me. Otherwise, if I'm like, oh, this is right, that's wrong, this is, and I get emotionally caught up with all this stuff going on, then it disrupts the field coming back in, and I can't be sensitive to a higher level of understanding and
Right.
being.
And I will add to that, there's another phrase that everybody's heard. That's how you can actually be in this world and not of this world. Literally. That's what we're describing in modern terminology, how it could show itself in this world of 2024. But it was true then as well.
It's always been true. I
Yes.
mean, in this paradigm, this game of, you know, modern game of what we know. I don't know what if we had different constructs, you know, before written history and millions or billions of years ago on this planet. I think it's gone through a lot in time.
Hmm.
But right now, this is what we have. So like the good news for all the listeners out there is that this is what you have control over, right?
Right.
You know, it's like it looking in an out of control world, out of control people around you, whatever that is out of control. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's that, but you don't have to be that.
No,
You
you
can
don't.
walk, you can walk through it in a point of just of containment, you know,
You can
containment
do
and
that. It's
yeah,
there to be had, but most people so far don't choose it. But there's a hell of a lot of them that are looking at it, and quite a few of them have chosen it. And you know what? They would be talking the same way as I am and you are if they
yep,
were sitting here in conversation. They would be nodding their heads and
yep,
adding to the conversation from their own idiosyncratic life that they've uniquely lived and sharing and building, making it a fuller story. There's so many things,
exactly.
and there's other things going on too in this environment. We're talking about what we individually as human beings, I like that too, not doings, are going through, which is what we're pointing at in this conversation. But there's great uncoverings. You've seen that. And the masks are being ripped away. The historical maps are being ripped away. And
Yeah.
it's the end. Not everybody's listening, but there's a hell of a lot of people that are. And that's part of the larger story, which is a whole different kind of a conversation. But we're not just operating as unique, one among a 10 million or something like that. We have help. It's happening all over the place. There's something going on now that hasn't gone on, if ever.
Yeah.
And I would maintain if ever. But it technically could have happened again, in ancient history before written history and all that shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know in recorded history, which does cover the last 6 or 7 thousand years, or maybe 8,000 years by now, it hasn't happened. And if it has, it's been unique, like the Anasazi or somebody else somewhere
Yeah.
else. Some small group might have, collectively come to a point of ascension, if you will, which is
Completion,
completion. There
ascension,
you go.
completion. Yeah.
Yeah. But for the massive population, no, they've been subject to this overlay.
You know, and one of the things that I'm always sharing in one of my premises, my fundamental premises, is what's wrong with something is beside the point. What's right with it is the point. So when you look around the world and you see all the things wrong, you see in politics and all this, what's wrong with it is beside the point. You cannot build off of something that's wrong. It's a faulty foundation, or there
Bingo.
is no foundation. You cannot build off of that. What you have to build off of is what's right with things. You know, so you find first what's right with you. And then you build your beingness off of what's right with you and the love you have for yourself. And then you look around in your world and you see what's right with the people around you. You see what's
Yep.
right, whatever your purvey is meant to be, that sphere of influence. You
Hmm.
always look to see what's right with it. And that's what you start to see. And the more you feed that muscle, I look around, I've said this many times before. I look around the people around me and I see the angel walking within that human body. Now they may not see it. They may, and sometimes the words that come out of them, they shock me because I see the angel and then they say something really unenlightened or really, you're like, oh, well, there's the human,
Okay,
you
there's the
know,
boundary just been crossed.
just been crossed, and that's okay. That is okay. But I choose in my world to see a world, what's right with people, what's right with nature, what's right with, projection or not, and whether it what no matter what, there's still goodness and rightness to be seen in it. And when we feed that, that's what grows for our world,
Correct.
and I want that world for me. And if you want that world for you, oh my God, then we're in agreement, And if you don't, if you it looks different for you, well, great. I don't love you any less,
No, that's
you
true.
know.
It doesn't change your inner world. It
No,
doesn't. You see it, you recognize it. And there's there's times and places where you can be effective and do something positive and build, make it better. There's times when no, you're not, you might be there, but you don't belong there and you recognize it and you leave that area. That's
yeah,
because you know where you fit and where you don't fit. You can be in the world but not of the world. So the world is
boundaries.
bigger than you as an individual. You know that. There's all these
Yeah.
people and all these things and everything going on. Not everything's right for you.
No, and that's where you have boundaries. Like you were talking about, the key to boundaries is that we have to have those boundaries to know what is me, what's not me, what's right for me, what's not right for me. Sometimes what's not right for me right now, in another week or two, it might be right for me
It
because my
might.
consciousness changed. But if I try to ingest it now, it's going to cause, disruption. So
Correct.
it's just like right now, what is right for you, what is not right for you, what are your boundaries, how can you walk into, maybe there's certain rooms you can't walk into right now, but down the line, and you've grown in strength and your own personal power, you can walk into that room and man, you slay that room because your light is shining and nothing's going to come in. And that's like, that comes back like the Toltec things of just being and doing the best you can be in every moment. And it's going to be
Correct.
different. Doing your best is different from right now. My best tomorrow morning may be better than my best today, or I maybe not be as good as my best today, but I'm going to do my best,
I got one for you.
every moment. Yeah.
It's a philosophical kind of a discussion, and I'm not going to go into it. Neither are you, I'm sure. There is no such thing. There's nothing other than the eternal now anyway. I'll throw that out there. The
Yeah.
philosophers will understand what I'm pointing at, and the others may not. But there is no past and future. We think there is, but that's just a thought. All right,
God, that's we're
heavy
going to,
duty.
no, we're going to save that. I'm going to make a note for next week because that's another quandary where if you know that to be true, then you try to balance other stuff that you know to be true, but they're direct opposites of each other.
Oh
They're
wow,
the
I'm not sure I
dichotomy.
could get involved in
Oh
that.
no, no, no! You'll totally be that. But it's like, yeah, be in the eternal now. Yet we're in time, and how time plays out, and also parallel realities. I mean, it just brings up like,
Yeah, that brings up so many things. Honest to God, I'll share with you in private. I just heard.
okay,
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
we'll wait, and we'll actually. I think it's a really good time to wrap up the conversation because I really feel like we wrapped it up, and it's been a beautiful, powerful time with you once again, Maurice. And I know it's going to be a real blessing, is going to spill over to many other people, and it's really about navigating this realm, right? That's what you and I are talking about, is navigating this realm as a individual, as a human being, and how can we be more effective, and how can we build the world and the life that we want, and it's available to us. That's the good news. It's
That
available to
is
us.
the big
Yeah.
thing. It is available. We're not lost. I,
No.
we can be, and we have all spent a whole bunch of time feeling lost, haven't we? We don't like that. in retrospect. We look back and say, damn, I don't like that. Something's got to, how do I change? What can I do to change? And you and I are talking about how we've managed to figure out, a measure of change along the way. And maybe some of this will be, it will ring a bell with somebody or other along the way. I suspect it will. It won't, it won't be their specific path, but we've said enough things in here that are triggers that will help. I'm absolutely certain about that, and that's enough.
Yeah, I feel the same way too, Maurice, and I feel personally blessed having you in my world. And I look forward every Thursday with you. And from the comments we're getting back, is it's touching a lot of other lives too.
Good.
And sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is just remind people. People be like, I knew that. That's true. I knew that. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, and
Because
they also
it
recognize
rings a bell.
they're not as alone as they thought they were.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. Okay, my dear friend, let's wrap it up and say thank you, everybody. And until next week, we will be talking with you then.